All right, Jules, you know what's coming. So if Vlatko Andonovski has to go for this humiliation where with all this talent, the team plays badly and goes out on penalties in the round of 16.
Yeah.
What about Sarina Wiegman? Because this team also played really badly in the first two games. And actually, arguably, not even arguably, I think it's indisputable, they played worse relative to Nigeria than the U.S. played relative to Sweden. And in the end, they go through on penalties. Should Sarina Wiegman go too?
But they've qualified. So
so that changes everything, yeah?
Come on, God. This is a result business. You know, you can play badly now and in the quarterfinal and semi-final, final, and win the final. You'll be a world champion, so you won't get sacked. And she won the Euros a year ago. This again, Vlatko had two competitions to get it right, especially for this one. And in both occasions, they played terribly. And probably more talent in this US squad. I know they've got injuries. England have got injuries as well. Than England have. I think I'm not a big Wiegman fan, to be fair. I thought that at the Euros, the team was carried by the incredible atmosphere around, the fact that it was in England. They have some very talented players, very important, charismatic leaders in that team. And I think that's more than her own tactics. That's what took that team all the way to the top, and deservedly so. They were the best team in that tournament. And now maybe you see the real Wiegman in a way, because I think she's struggling tactically and what to do, even in her own substitutions. So let's see what happens in the quarterfinal, whether they play against Colombia or Jamaica. And then we will know a bit more. But as long as you win, it's hard for the people above you to sack you, to be fair.
No, but maybe you draw conclusions in the tournament. It'll be interesting to see how they can turn it around, because the way Andonovski played again, the way U.S. played against Sweden was a much better performance. You could see, we've seen it before in men's tournaments and women's tournaments. Teams stink it up in the group stage and then play better and get better as the tournament progresses, and nobody remembers how terrible they were in the group stage. Because I'm old, I remember the first World Cup that my country won in my lifetime.
I thought you were going to say
we've actually won two in my lifetime. Sorry, Jules. And Italy were terrible in 1982 in the group stage. I know, very relevant today. And then they go on and they beat Brazil and Argentina and Germany, these big teams. And, nobody remembers how crappy the group stage was. So it could have gone that way. But on Andonovski, you were a little more charitable when we were talking off air about the job he's done and some of the challenges in coaching the U.S. women's national team, which are maybe different from coaching one of the big European teams.
Yeah, that's right. So when I was in the USA playing, you could see that there was a divide between, say, some of the women that played for the national team that didn't really play for their clubs, and some that were trying to play for their clubs to get into the national team. And it almost felt like the club was the national team. Yeah. And by all accounts, I think he's tried to change some of that across the years.
Can I jump in and give a perfect example of that?
Go for it.
Which I thought was so freaking weird. I know MLS does this too, but with MLS, there's no real risk of the U.S. winning the national team World Cup for a while. So they win the World Cup in France in 2019. NWSL is still going on.
It's still going on now.
It's still going on now. You're doing the World Cup, normal.
Yeah.
After the World Cup, they decide to go on a victory tour.
The tour, yeah.
All these women who have contracts with the NWSL, they go off on a victory tour, which is, is what it is. Football-wise, probably means nothing, but it's a chance. I don't have a problem with that. But what does this say about your team? What does it say about the women who are playing in NWSL week in, week out? I didn't understand that. I mean, is this the kind of stuff you're talking about?
Yeah, so I was actually in the USA in 2019 when that World Cup was happening. And you could see at this point, there were the way that some of the women perceived club football versus the way that others didn't, if you know what I mean. Like, after that World Cup, or during the World Cup, Australia, for example, were knocked out on like the Saturday. And then on the Wednesday, Sam Kerr was playing for Chicago. She came straight back from France to play in that game. Bang. This was straight in. The next available game.
Sam Kerr is Australian, for those who don't follow.
Yeah, sorry, my fault, yeah. And that could have happened. But then there were other people, say, who play for that national team, who didn't really have an interest in doing that. And obviously winning a World Cup is a huge thing. I can't tell you what that must feel like, because I don't have a clue, like 99% of the population, if not more. But they didn't seem like there was a desire or a drive to get to the NWSL. And in the USA, in my opinion, there's a big divide between people who watch the national team and people who watch women's soccer domestically. And I think some of the apathy from some of the players towards that is one of the reasons for it. Because, it's a league game, maybe I'll play. And Andonovski, in fairness to him, was trying to change that. He was trying to say he wants players to be playing week in, week out so that they can be selected to be part of the first pool, the smaller pool, big pool, whatever. But because the things haven't gone that well on the field, I could see the potential for some of his methods and stuff being changed going forward. But I think you've got to earn the right to be in that national team, whereas I think for a spell, depending on what your name was, you were just in a national team. You didn't need to do anything domestically. It didn't matter at all, did it?
Well, and looking at some of the older players who were in the mix, I wonder if that was the case to some degree this time around.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.